This will be a day long remembered. Now I am the master.
Welcome to another episode of Legends and Theories, and welcome to my review of Spider-Man the Animated Series. And this is a show from the 90s, in case if you're wondering and confused with other ones. Yeah, I'll be looking at the full show today. So let's get started. And starting off, we have some pretty interesting ones. There is Night of the Lizard, which is conveniently exactly like Batman the Animated Series with its first episode, On Other Wings, which is honestly kind of crazy, and I am just kind of stalling right now as I go and check the year. But yeah, it's kind of crazy that these two shows start with a very similar plot line with Kurt Connors and Kurt Langstrom, which is something you don't really realize when you start thinking about this, with the fact that they went and were both mutated characters that were in the first episodes that are actually allies to our heroes when they are not in their mutated forms, and I think that is pretty interesting to see. And yeah, I think it is. Yeah, that's what I thought. Batman the Animated Series was before in 1992. This started in 1994. That's pretty crazy that they start off with the same sort of storylines. And then going on to more, we have the Spider Slayer and Return of the Spider Slayers. I'm not sure if these were supposed to be episodes that were more separated into the season, and they just put them in like this because they sort of were shuffled around, and they sometimes put episodes in the wrong way. But there was a pretty big gap in time that seems to be followed up by other episodes in the season, so I'm guessing there was supposed to be more of a gap. Yeah, that was an interesting storyline. And then we see the first appearance of Mysterio, pulling off a pretty similar plot to what he did in Far From Home, and this time he is exposed and doesn't ruin Peter's life. He just goes straight up with framing him automatically and not gaining his trust. And then see our first appearance of Doc Ock, and then Scorpion and Craven. And those were all really good episodes. Then we have an amazing three-parter where we get to see the Venom storyline played through. And I think they did a good job with that. Seeing the black suit Spider-Man and then the eventual creation of Venom. And then we have fun one with the Hobgoblin, with Mark Hamill returning to voice him. Well, no, he's returning coming in to voice him because he's returning to, iconic villains. Well, the Hobgoblin isn't as iconic as the Joker. He still did a great job with him. Maybe even better if he did Green Goblin, but still it was great for him to do Hobgoblin. And then we finally get to see the Chameleon, and that was another really well done episode. Going to season 2, we get the Neurogenic Nightmares season, where it's Peter dealing with really just all of the genetic problems he has with his powers and turning into the Man Spider. We get the first part with the Sinister Six, or as they call it here, the Insidious Six, because for some reason they couldn't use the word sinister. Then we get to see the story of Hydro Man, which is another interesting one. And then we get to see an X-Men crossover. Yeah, that was pretty fun. Moving to the next part of the season, we have Morbius being created, and then a fun storyline with the Punisher hunting down Peter, and then eventually going and having to fight the Man Spider when both Kraven and the Punisher are trying to hunt him down. We get to see a storyline with Blade appearing, and he's trying to take down Morbius with Spider-Man. And then we have finally the Tablet of Time storyline, which leads into the Vulture one. And this one gets to a pretty crazy point where Peter is eventually able to cure himself from the spider disease, so he's not turning into the man spider anymore, but also gets to keep his spider abilities that he already had. Going to season 3, it is Sins of the Father, which is one that deals into a lot of different storylines. We get to see what happens with MJ when she is kidnapped by a cult led by Mordo trying to bring back Dormammu. And then we get to see, honestly, a really dark one at the end. This is one that, well, you don't really see how dark it is until you get to the end of it, because you get to see Peter teaming up with a young little girl who really is just really inspired by him and wants to meet Spider-Man, and then gets amnesia, and that leads to him teaming up with Doc Ock thinking he's a villain, but then he is able to be remembered who he is, and we get the final shot, which was extremely dark, that he was actually leaving the girl's house, which is actually a home for the terminally ill, and that was a pretty dark ending. And with it, you probably could have seen coming with the title Make a Wish, but yeah, I didn't see it coming until that last shot, and it was like, wow, that's a dark ending. Then we get a really good one with Enter the Green Goblin, where we get to see Norman Osborn become the Green Goblin, and then there's another with Sins of the Father, which, no, this is Rocket Racer. I think this was one I didn't really care about. Probably the first one. And then we get the episode Framed in the Man Without Fear, which is a great Daredevil crossover, but also has Peter learn who the Kingpin really is, and how he's just been an enemy that has been tormenting him for 2.5 seasons, and he never even knew he existed. Then we get the Ultimate Slayer, and that was one pretty good one. Tombstone was another okay one. And then we get the Return of Venom and the Creation of Carnage, and that was a really interesting one. The Spot was a decent storyline. But then we get a good one with the Goblin War, and then turning point where we see a sort of interpretation of the death of Gwen Stacy with the disappearance of MJ. And I think that was a really great way to end the season, and was a pretty, dark ending, although I think they couldn't kill anyone off in this, so MJ just disappeared. Going to the 4th season, we get to see Partners in Danger, which is the title of the season, with our different episodes. We have the first one with Robbie being framed for robbery and Spider-Man is trying to save him. And then we get the creation of Black Cat, which was a good storyline, and then we see the return of Kraven the Hunter, and I think that was handled well also. Then get to see Peter and the Black Cat team up and start to become partners. There's then one where they try to cure Morbius and have to fight Blade's mother. And then we have a pretty interesting one with Harry Osborn becoming the Green Goblin and being tormented by his father trapped in another dimension, pushing him to become the Goblin and try to kill Peter. We then see MJ return, and at this point, she is, well, we don't know it yet, but she's not the real MJ. It was a pretty crazy storyline. We also have the Punisher appearing in the last one, which is an interesting way to have the storyline go. And then see Kirk Connors turned back into the Lizard, as there are children created by him that are pushing him to become their leader, and he is just barely saved by Peter, who finally reveals he is Spider-Man 2, who he thinks is MJ. And we finish up with a pretty decent one with the Prowler. And this is not the one that would be Miles' uncle. It is Hobie Brown. And it was a pretty good one still, and an interesting storyline. The fifth season starts off with the wedding between Peter Parker and Mary Jane, and that was a pretty crazy one. And there is the Six Forgotten Warriors storyline, which is an entire one with the Red Skull, his son, the creation of Electro, and a team up with Captain America. And that was a pretty interesting storyline to see. And once it ends, I think they did a really good job. There's a really tragic one with the Return of Hydra Man storyline, where we learn that Peter did not actually find the real MJ and is a clone that was created of her. And he ultimately loses this MJ and is very, well, destroyed by it, and he goes to look for the real one with the help of the Beyonder and Madam Web, which leads to the Secret Wars storyline. And that was a really interesting one, with them adapting Secret Wars into a test for Spider-Man, with the Beyonder being a little less, not exactly evil. I don't remember Secret Wars too much. It's been a while since I have read it, the original one, and I think that it is still interesting. And we get to see a team up between some pretty unique characters that I've never really met in this show. We have Captain America, Iron Man, Storm, and for the first time, the Fantastic Four, which was a pretty interesting way to go. And this was all to get Peter ready for the series finale, which it turned out to be. Although they did have more plans since they wanted to resolve the MJ storyline with the Spider Wars storyline, where we first get the concept of the Spider-Verse, from what I could tell, and you see a team up between multiple Spider-Men to take down Spider Carnage, who is an evil version of Peter. And this version of Spider Carnage is actually defeated by not them fighting him, but using Uncle Ben to make him become a good person. And we also get to see a pretty crazy reality where basically everyone, including J. Jonah Jameson, loves Peter since he is the creator of a great company and is a public hero. And yeah, I think that this was just such a well done storyline. We also had the one and only appearance of Gwen Stacy in that. I think they did a great job with this show. But I want to know, what do you think? Did you like this series? Did you not like it, or have you never seen it? I think it is a good watch, and it's definitely a unique one since in this reality, like the Earth's Mightiest Heroes is one of the few where all the superheroes exist in the same reality, and it is not, a cheesy one like some of the earlier ones, since now they don't really do it, since only recently the rights issues have been basically resolved. So the X-Men, Fantastic Four, and Avengers, and Spider-Man could all exist in the same universe. So let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you all in the next episode of Legends and Theories. Thank you for watching this episode of Legends and Theories. Please subscribe, like the video, share the video, leave a comment, check out the video on screen, and may the Force be with you.